Hello and welcome to the mothership. Thank you for joining us, whatever time it is here. Oh, I had that. His hair was perfect. I was just walking through the streets of Soho in the rain, looking for a place called Lee Ho Fox. Get a big dish of beef chow mein. Anyway, look, I have some videos I want to do just to get them out there. I do want to do a story time for you real quick, okay? And this story time is brought to you by Redman. This is from 2021. I've been hanging on to this for no particular reason. I don't chew it much anymore, but when I was younger, I sure did. But so look, I want to tell you the story that I want to tell you a story, okay? And Kat and Blue Sasquatch and Ricardo. And everybody at Cat's Puzzle Stream who was there the other night that I was there, I missed the last one. I think y'all will get it interesting. I think y'all will find this interesting because it's not just a story about Redman chewing tobacco, but it's also a story about a Wolverine, and it's about me, and it's also about Bushman, where I'm from we call Bigfoot. So when I was about 12, I'd say, it was about 12 years old. I was up in a climbing tree, hunting moose, and I was reading a book because my grandfather told me, take a book with you, and every time you read a page, look up, because we did a lot of slip hunting, which means moving through the woods looking for game, but sometimes especially when I was younger. You'd get left somewhere where trails crossed and stuff. And then like my granddad and my dad, they'd make climbing trees, Some of them were just for looking out of and some were for hunting out of, But so I was, it was one of the first years I hunted with an actual rifle. My first gun that I carried was a Traditions 45 caliber muzzleloader, which has long been gone. I need to tell you a story about that too, which predates this story by quite a bit. But so at this time in my life, I was carrying an 1873 Trapdoor Springfield 4570, single shot. I don't know if y'all look that gun up if you're familiar, but that's what the U.S. Cavalry especially used from 1873 to about 1886. Maybe a little bit longer. There actually was some trapdoors at the Battle of San Juan Hill, but they were like the very low end, like the National Guard type units. They were still using some of those, so it probably stayed in production quite a while. But I think 86 was maybe the last run. Maybe 89 was like the last time they made them. Anyway, cool gun, not the point of the story. So I was sitting up in this tree on a little platform looking over the wilderness and reading Centennial by James Michener as a 12-year-old. So I was reading, I had my head down, and I heard something, and I looked up. And where I was up in a tree probably. There was a wooden ladder. It was really just rungs, like put on, but it was a wooden ladder. All homemade shit. And so I was facing this way. We always approached, and the camp was this direction. And but there was a trail that crossed there. So you had to listen really hard over here. There was a trail that went right underneath like this. You can't see, but it went underneath and it went out like that and came back around. On this side was a creek, an old creek. And if you went up a little further, there was a big lake and a beaver dam, right? And there was a trail down the side of it. And then there was about 3 or 4 crossings that, like that. And there was a big crossing out over this way. So it was a good place to just sit. And there was a lot of game taken out of this spot for many years because it's a good spot. But so I was reading my book, doing my thing, and I heard something and I looked up, And the trail came at me straight, but then it turned like this and it went behind some bushes. And through the bushes, I could see some movement. I got a sticker in my pants, so I'm just doing this if you're wondering what I'm doing. Yeah, look at that. You're not gonna be able to see it, but that was a good one. I just found these, luckily I had these scissors. Now what am I gonna do with it? I'm putting it in the spittoon. Put it in the spittoon so I don't find it again. So I looked up and I seen this shape and I seen a color, and it was, it was fairly grayish. And I could just barely see it through the bushes. And I knew it wasn't a bear and I knew it wasn't a moose because it was too short. And it walked like this. When it went like this, okay? And at that moment, I said, oh, look, that's the biggest fucking porcupine I ever seen, because porcupines walk like that. And I'll name some other animals for you later, but like porcupines walk like that. When they walk, they shake. They go, blue, 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 blue. And so I thought, oh, that's just a porcupine, so I just went back to reading my book. And as I was reading, I could see out of the peripheral, I could see this creature moving down the trail, but I was paying it no mind because I had already determined that it was not a moose and not a bear. So it wasn't anything I was really going to shoot to eat. A lot of people eat porcupine, but they're pretty fucking cute. It's kind of hard to kill a porcupine, to be honest with you. And unless you're starving, but it's kind of hard to kill a porcupine. They're pretty cute. So I saw this animal come down the peripheral, and I said, oh, I'm going to take a look at that. I'm going to take a look at that porcupine since he's here. So I seen the shape stop at the bottom. And I said, oh, he's going to stop to let me get a look at him, So I closed my book, and I looked down over the railing, and it was the biggest, ugliest wolverine that I've ever seen. And I probably only had ever seen alive probably half a dozen wolverines up until then. Wolverines are fairly, they are elusive, and you can spend a lot of time in the woods and never hardly even see a wolverine track. I think a wolverine's range, like a bear's range is like up to 600 miles or something like that. And a wolverine's is like far beyond that. Fucking wolverines cover some fucking ground. A lot of people think mountain lions and shit like that, like they have a big range. Like, no, the Wolverine is such a badass that motherfucker, he fucking owns 1,000 fucking miles, and no other Wolverines come around there unless it's girls and boys trying to continue the species, but. So I looked down over the edge of this little platform my dad had made, and that Wolverine, he was looking right at me, dead in the eyes. He was looking right at me. And I went, oh shit, that's kind of, wow. And it was big, I tell you. It was fucking massive. And then that Wolverine, he looked at me and he stood up on his hind legs. And I went, oh, that's fucking cute, That fucker reached out with his hand, put it on the ladder. I thought, oh, I went, and not good. It's not good. This motherfucker starts climbing the ladder, and he's growling at me, looking right at me. And I realize now, I didn't at the moment, but I realize now, see, that Wolverine had been hunting himself and sleeping up in, I didn't find the sign of this till after this encounter, but this Wolverine had been staying up there, and he liked it up there, and he thought I was in his fucking place. And so that fucker, he's coming up that ladder, and look, it was probably maybe 8 or 10 rungs of a ladder, a homemade ladder, and they're very far apart. When I was a kid, when my dad first built it, when I was real little, he had to almost push me from one rung to the other because they were too far apart. They were shit almost, over 3 feet, I wouldn't say quite 4 feet, but like even as a grown man, you had to pull your knee all the way up to your chin to get to that next rung, but this Wolverine, he just reached out and just like nothing. And time stood still, man. And I jumped up and I grabbed my rifle, right? Single shot, 45-70, it shoots a cartridge, 45. If anybody is ever looking for a a rifle, by a 45-70 caliber. It's still to this day the oldest produced cartridge in America. And I think possibly the world. The U.S. military still uses a 45-70 they use a 45-70 blank to shoot the fucking ropes from ship to ship with those guns. And a 45-70 is still the primer for a lot of the big giant guns on battleships. So, and it was introduced into the military in 1873, and they still use it today for certain things. Anyway, so I grab this rifle and I pull the hammer back and I bring the bead down right on that motherfucker. And this is the... So when I did that and I started to squeeze that trigger, a being, a spirit, and I know it was Bushman. Bushman is what we call Bigfoot. And he's an interdimensional being, and he can read your mind. He could read your thoughts. He can tell you things. And some people may have had this experience and not really known who it was. But so I go to shoot this thing, and I start to squeeze the trigger, and plain as day, a being is right next to me. And it says into my ear, it says, anybody could do that. That's not the test. Plain as day. Anybody could do that. That is not the test. And I hear that voice tell me that. And I go, shit! It's the first time I know I said anything out loud. I might have said fuck, I don't remember. But I went, oh, damn it. And so I put the hammer down and I put the gun down. Because that spirit told me you can't shoot it. And I was looking around. This tree fort had been there for a while, so I grabbed a part of a branch and I was going to use it as a club, and it was rotten. As soon as I went like this, it just fell apart. And all I carried was like a little case pocket knife, and I didn't even think about pulling it out because it's only this big, and I did not want to get that fucking close, right? And I'm scrambling, and I don't know what to do, and this fucker's steadily coming up the ladder going, and he wants to eat my fucking ass, baby. And so the platform is probably like 4 feet square, right? And I say, all right, well, I'm just going to back up, and when that, I just thought, when that motherfucker comes up to the top, we're going to fucking haul off and kick him, or we're going to do something, we got to fight. Because the spirit told me I can't shoot him. And, you don't ever really want to club anything with your gun unless it's life or death, which this obviously was. But I took the hammer down and put the fucking gun back in the corner. Leaning up against this tree up there in the platform. And so when I backed up, my dad had built what he calls a drunk man rail. So this is like 4 trees that are fairly square and growing, and then he builds a platform between them, about 4 by 4. So 2 people can be in there comfortably, and then have a ladder, right? So I back up as far as I can get from where the ladder's coming up. And when I do, my ass touches the rail, and I feel something in my pocket. And I go, oh my God, okay, what is that? And it's a package of Red Man. And I go, well, what's that? I mean, I was a little feeling in despair there for a minute. And I fucking, I ripped this motherfucker open, and I took a big wad of it, and I stuck it in my mouth, and I went back up to where the little opening was, where the ladder comes up. And right about that time, look, that Wolverine, he had put his foot was off of the ladder and on the platform, okay? And when I took a step up there, my foot landed right next to his foot. Like, I stepped forward, and the whole time, look, I put that Red Man in my mouth, and I was going, chewing it. And I took a step forward with this foot, my right foot, and his left front paw came up at the same time and landed right on the inside of my foot, And when he was a little surprised, and he looked up at me, and he fucking grit his teeth, and I bent all the way down, and I kid you guys not, I couldn't have been, you know, however far of a distance is from maybe right below your knee to the thing, to the floor, right? Because I was standing up and I bent all the way over. And that Wolverine's face wasn't that far from my face. And he looked at me and I went, and I spit that fucking wad of Red Man and it hit him right here. It made a big sound too, just like a movie. And that fucker, he let go. He looked like Simba's dad. You know what I'm saying? He let go and he fell all the way down and he hits the fucking ground. He hits the fucking ground and he starts rolling like a Tasmanian devil, like the cartoon. He's just, you can't even, it's like a cartoon. He's fucking, and he's going, and he's making all these fucking sounds, right? And you can see he's clawing at his fucking face, right? And he's making all this terrible racket. And he fucking rolls all around and he starts slowing down and you can see him. He's fucking wiping that fucking Red Man out of his eyeballs, man. And he's fucking, he's doing all that. And he finally, and he's looking at me. You know, he's on the ground and I'm up in this tree now. And he's clawing at his shit and he's looking and he finally calms down a little bit. He calms down and he stares right at me. And that fucker, he backs up. Never turned around. He backed up, crossed the little trail there, and he sat down. And he sat down like this, like a statue, you know what I mean? Like, you know how the lions and shit, how they're like, they're all bowed up like that, you know, like Bagheera, when he, in the Jungle Book, when he pretends to be that, that's how he sat. He sat like that. And that motherfucker looked at me dead in the fucking eyes, and that fucker never blinked. And I fucking stared at him. And that fucking Wolverine sat there for at least an hour. And he never moved a muscle, and he just stared at me. And I just stared back at him. And then at some point, he blinked a little bit. He got up. And he backed up a little bit more. And he turned around, but he never looked. He turned around and he kept looking at me. And he walked away probably 20, 30 yards. And there was a big tree that had fallen over. He got to that tree. He looked away real quick. He jumped up on that log and then he looked one more time. Then he jumped down. And he just walked off. He just walked off. Well, yeah, I was 12 years old, and, I told my granddad and my uncles and everything that story, and, I've never really doxed my name on here, but I am going to today. That was the first name I ever earned, and it was Iron Will. My name is I go by Bill a lot, but when I was a kid, they called me Will, and, so when I was a kid, everybody called me Will, but they named me Iron Will. They named me Iron Will after that. And that was like my first true native name. Iron Will. But yeah, that voice I heard, that was the spirit. That was Bushman. You know? But that always blew my mind. I had that fucker dead to rights. And I heard that voice plain as day. He said, anybody could do that. That's not the test. He might have said, that's not the test, anybody can do that. I can't really remember which one was first, but that's what he said. He said, anybody can do that. Made me feel this big when when that fucker said it right here in this ear, that anybody could do that. And I went, fuck. Anyway, that's a very special story. It's a very special story to me, and I've never done a story time on it because I just figured I shouldn't give that one away for free. You know what I mean? I should make people buy the fucking book for that story, but I wanted to share it because it means a lot to me. And I hope everybody enjoyed it, all right? I know Dylan and like 5 other people watch my story time, and that's about it, but you know, they'll always be here when the rest of y'all realize how fucking famous I am, really. Anyway, so Red Man chewing tobacco saved my life. Well, it at least saved me from having to fight a Wolverine hand to hand. But yeah, so yet another wonderful thing that I learned from a John Wayne movie was don't be afraid to fucking spit that tobacco juice in their eye. You remember that in Big Jake? In Big Jake, he does that. He's got the one guy hiding on this side of the mule, and he knows there's a guy hiding behind the door. He rides his horse through there, and he goes, and the guy goes, ah! And then anyway, that's what happens, you guys. Anyway, on the Basi. I'll see everybody on down the trail.